ladies and gentlemen, I just realized we didn't name our story, but this is the mixed up, mashed up fairy tales from the minds of these actors of Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, and Jack and the Beanstalk. Once upon a time, there was a brother and a sister named Hansel and Gretel. They lived in a bakery with their stepmother. The stepmother was a mean woman who often mistreated the children. One day she said,
"Get out of the house, you're eating all the goodies."
And Hansel and Gretel said,
"Why? I'm so sad."
But the evil stepmother insisted on kicking them out.
Go out, now.
And Hansel and Gretel went into the woods. And the wicked stepmother returned to her house. Oh wait, I'm sorry, the wicked stepmother stayed in the bakery. Because later that day, Little Red Riding Hood, who lived next door, went to the bakery to buy some treats for her sick grandmother. Little Red said,
"I need to buy some treats for my sick grandmother."
but the mean stepmother said,
"Get out of the house. I hate children. Get out."
So Little Red went off into the woods too, and the wicked stepmother went into her house. Shortly, Little Red met Gretel and Hansel in the woods. Hansel said,
Hello.
Gretel said,
Well, hello.
Little Red said,
Hello.
and they were all, Little Red, can you face the audience? They were all scared and hungry, and Gretel said,
My tummy's gurgling.
but then Hansel said,
Look!
and he saw, what did he see?
A gingerbread house.
The three children were so hungry that they ran over to the house and started breaking off pieces of it. Little Red was putting it in her basket, and Hansel and Gretel were eating when all of a sudden they heard a voice.
On my cottage.
And the witch jumped out, and she captured Little Red, Gretel, and Hansel. She locked them up, and she said,
I need to go turn on the oven.
but I'm going to eat you for breakfast.
Oh, I'm going to eat you for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And then she said, turn on the oven.
I'm going to go turn on the oven.
But first she had to turn on the oven. Meanwhile, back in the forest, a young boy named Jack was walking through the woods on his way to town to sell his cows. Jack said, oh, Milky Way.
Milky Way. You're my friend.
But just then, Jack heard screams coming from the cottage. Jack ran inside and released Little Red, Hansel, and Gretel. They all said,
Thank you. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
and freeze. But just then, a hungry wolf popped out from behind a tree and howled. Little Red, Hansel, and Gretel, and Jack ran away from the wolf. The wolf was in hot pursuit. But suddenly, up ahead of them, they saw a beanstalk. And they started climbing, and climbing, and climbing, when they discovered that they were in a kingdom of giants.
Go away. Chicken.
Jack, always one to be looking for a buck, saw a chicken that could lay golden eggs, and he grabbed it. And he had a plan to capture Little Red.
Oh, you're kidding. I will dress up as Grandma, and they will come to Grandma's house, and I will eat them.
So the wolf dressed up as Grandma, but then they heard a booming voice say, it was a giant! When he saw an old grandmother in his kitchen, he was delighted. Humans were his favorite food. But the wolf said,
No, don't eat me.
but the giant thought that the wolf dressed up as Grandma was a human, so he gobbled up the grandma. But the giant was allergic to wolves. And so suddenly his tummy started to rumble and gurgle. And he had horrible indigestion. And he ended